Hey guys, we're back at the Smoky Fire today, and we're talking about God's love. We're talking about what it means to love God with all of our mind, where we contemplate stuff. And I can understand far greater God's anger and His righteousness and His holiness than I can the extent of His amazing love. We've spoken about the object of God's love. The object of the God's love is the world, and the whosoever of the world, where we said yesterday Jesus spoke that parable about the king who had the party. Those invited didn't come, but he went into the highways and the byways, and he invited the whosoever of society to come to his party. Now, those are the objects of God's love. Let's just talk about the objective of God's love. Why would God love us? Why wouldn't God just, when we messed up in Eden, just snuff us out and say, let me start again, and let me do this a better way this time? But God never did that. The objective of God's love is twofold. The first objective of God's love, believe it or not, is that He wants you to go to heaven. And when it says, for God so loved, that so is a very important word. Because when there is a so love thing there, it means that He's done something. It doesn't say just God loved the world. Love can be a distant thing, but when you so love something, that means that you are physically doing something to show that love. Well, you all know the story. You all know the Christmas story. You all know the Easter story, how God came as a baby and was misunderstood and maligned and persecuted and ultimately crucified for our salvation. He rose again on the third day. That's the so of the love, or God so loved, because there was a sacrificial element to His love for us. The objective of love, first of all, is that God would get you to heaven. You see, He wants to spend eternity with you. He wants you to be there with Him. And then the second objective of God's love is that He would like you to respond to this love down here, so you don't just get a reward up there, but that you get the beauty of the reward up there is the life that He will give you, but you get to live down this earth with the fulfillment of knowing that I have found God in the messed up, tragic situation of this world. And the way I spend this short time down here is going to determine how I spend the rest of eternity. Now, I was doing a funeral the other day, and it was of a young man. And I said to the congregation, you know, we all think that death is reserved for the old. Apparently that's not true. We are burying young people all over the place right now. And the interesting thing is that the brevity of their life does not take away from its significance. It's a significant thing. But how you spend this very short life, and even if you live to 100, in the light of eternity, your life is just that. It's a click of a finger. It's a blink of an eye. It's a smoke. You see the smoke for a second, and then it's gone. And the Bible tells us that's like your life. Your life is there. It's a smoke and it's gone. It's there. It's a shadow, and you look back and it's gone. That's the brevity of your life. Whether you live 5 years or 100 years, in the context of eternity, it is very short. But here's the big deal. What you do down here on this earth with that click of a finger, blink of an eye, or the drift of the smoke determines how you spend the rest of eternity. And the thesis of that is simply this: spend this well, so you don't mess it up for the rest of eternity, because he talks here that everlasting life that you should have everlasting life. Now people, everlasting is a long time. You can't measure the length of it. It's everlasting. And the dress rehearsal that we live down here right now is going to determine how we spend the everlasting life that God would want for you to spend with Him in eternity. So I appeal to you today, evaluate your own life. Evaluate in the context of how much God loves you, wants to be a part of your life, or wants to be invited into every decision in your life. He's waiting to be invited. He will never force Himself into your life. We often speak, and we will talk about the omnipotence of God maybe next week, and that is being one of the great attributes, which means that there is nothing God cannot do. But there are some things God will not do, and one of them is violate your freedom of choice. You have a choice to invite Him into your life. You have a choice to include Him in the decisions and the choices that you make. You have the final say. God doesn't. And so when you look at God's love, it requires from you some kind of a response. Generally, it would be a choice. Am I going to trust Him for this short life that I'm here on earth because He so loved me, which meant He sacrificed for me, and I have everlasting life ahead of me? But the challenge for us today is how we live this short life down here on earth is going to determine how we spend the rest of eternity. So people, spend it well. Spend it well. Live this life in the context of the wonder of God's amazing grace and His incredible love for you. And when you begin to live like that, all of a sudden the world takes on a new meaning. Your life takes on a new meaning. Your problems get smaller as God gets bigger. Why don't you do that today? And I'll see you tomorrow.